All right, welcome back to All Day Live. As you know, there's been a push to take up gun control legislation in the wake of the Annunciation shooting last August. Governor Walz, some other Democratic leaders actually unveiled a comprehensive gun violence prevention package this morning that they say is aimed at protecting the health, safety, and well-being of Minnesotans. And there's going to be a House committee hearing later today, proposed bans on high-capacity magazines and assault weapons. Joining me now is Blois Olson, Fox 9 political analyst and founder of Fluence Media. Thanks so much for being with us again, Blois.
Happy to be here.
Let's talk about the background, I guess, first of all. Coming out of the tragedy at Annunciation in August, there were a lot of emotions, a very strong push for more gun control. Walk us through what happened sort of late summer into the fall with lawmakers.
Well, I mean, we have a tie in the House, so let's just start there. And not all Democratic senators wanted to vote on some of the proposals that Governor Walz wanted them to vote on. And Governor Walz came out fast and furious and said, we're going to have a special session, we're going to pass some laws. But he quickly learned that he didn't have the votes. And if you don't have the votes, you would be considered defeated if you put up a bill and it went down. That would have made the issue go away because the political will wasn't there. And so he regrouped, he stepped back, he announced his reelection, he announced he's not running again, and now this is one of, I think, the legacy issues that he wants to focus on. But he's still got a lot of headwinds in his face if he thinks most of this is going to get past the legislature.
Okay. Negotiations, obviously, you're gonna come out strong. The DFL is laying out some very firm ban assault weapons, ban high capacity magazines. Is there room in there at all when you say they don't have the votes? I mean, is there enough room to even compromise on anything? Or do you think that it's going to look like this, and if it's not that, it's baby out with the bathwater?
You don't want to focus on process because talking about process is boring. But if Democrats could get this to the House floor, then they would force a vote by Republicans. But the Speaker controls the floor, and the Republicans have the Speaker. So in the House, it's not going to be there. I think there is going to be some sort of vote in the Senate. They're going to have to make sure they have all the Democratic votes because it's a 34-33 majority there. I do think there could be a Republican or two that might peel off in the Senate should there be a forced vote. But really, the other piece here is they want legislators on the record so that direct mail or that digital ad you see this fall says Representative so-and-so voted against protecting our kids from guns, voted against high volume magazines, things like that. So there's twofold. One is Walz wants this part of his legacy, and two, they want to use it in political ads this fall.
We also saw Blois mayors of several cities get together and say, just legislature, give us the ability to make this call for our own cities. Is that going to go anywhere, do you think?
I think that's probably not going to go anywhere. The patchwork of laws, city to city. And I do think, look, I'm not a gun owner. I think that there are too many guns. I don't think you need an assault weapon to hunt. But the Second Amendment is strong. But what I also want to say is there's a pragmatic side to this. Just because a city passes an ordinance doesn't mean that's going to change the way in which a criminal or somebody with a major mental health issue, processes these things. So I know they want to do it, but is it really going to do anything? I think that's the challenge that the elected officials have to get their head around.
And along those lines, we know that the Republicans have said, let's push for more money for school security, mental health resources. What about that side of things? Do you think that they will make progress there, or DFL is just going to say, you guys, you left us out in the cold with this, why should we help you? As politics goes sometimes on both sides, right?
Similar to why Democrats want Republicans to vote on gun control, Republicans want Democrats to vote on school safety and security and mental health funding because they can use it at the ballot box. But the reality is, we clearly do need the resources for our schools. You look at some of the lapses in school security that people have pointed out, not that anything has happened, but that something could have happened. I think that begins to be kind of the narrative Republicans want to push. The challenge with that is we just don't have a lot of resources. The budget forecast is this Friday, so any new money would be tough to come up with. The compromise position would be somehow the ammunition tax that Governor Walz is proposing, that money gets funded to school security and vice versa. Maybe that's the compromise.
I wanted to ask you to, so this happened in August, and since then, there's just been so much that's happened within our communities here. If this session would have started closer to this summer, do you think that would have made any difference?
I think it would have been a little bit different discussion, but the math of the votes is not deniable. And it'd be a challenge for me to say that the people would have voted different in September or October than they're going to vote in February or March.
And then as it relates to gun violence, I guess, we're talking a lot about, obviously, Annunciation, but also if we, to even parse out even more of what's the tragedies have happened here in Minnesota, when you go back to June, and you talk about these lawmakers who were murdered and also their attempted murder, how are they kind of getting their brains around all of that? Because on the one hand, that hits closer to home probably for them than anything could. Am I right?
Well, it certainly has changed the mindset for every lawmaker, Democrat or Republican. And so I think they're all much more conscious of their safety. There's new Capitol security. They want resources to be able to pay for their own security, which you can't blame any of them. So I think that is part of their mindset. But, Amy, we got to just be frank. This gun divide and gun debate doesn't move that much very often. And even for legislators, that probably isn't going to change their mind on a gun legislation. Now, it may change their mind on a bill like impersonating a police officer and moving that from a misdemeanor to a felony, things like that. But those would seem to be things that you could get behind whether or not you had a tragedy or not.
All right. Blois, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks,
All right,
Same.
Take care.